Ever felt like you're just drowning in information, especially with tech and security stuff?
Oh, constantly. It changes
Mhm.
so fast.
Right. One minute it's cloud this, AI that, and suddenly your network feels, well, maybe a bit outdated, or you just wish you had a clearer map. You want
Hmm.
to get the important stuff quickly without wading through, all the jargon.
Cut right to the chase.
Exactly. Well, that's what this is. Consider this your chart through those currents. Our mission today on the deep dive is to cut through that noise. We want to get you straight to the key insights in modern network management and security. Think of it as a shortcut to being really informed.
Sounds good.
And our way in today is, well, it's a bit unique. We're using practice questions, believe it or not, from an exam guide, the HPE7-J02 guide.
Ah, okay. Focusing on Aruba solutions.
Precisely.
Mhm.
But look, this isn't a test for you. Think of these questions more like a guided tour, a really well-structured way to walk through critical concepts shaping things today.
Using the questions as signposts, basically.
Okay. Exactly. We'll unpack what these things are, sure, but more importantly, why they matter and how they actually impact how networks are built and protected now. The goal is you walk away with clear, useful knowledge. Sound good?
Let's do it. It's interesting how something like an exam guide can actually, map out the strategy behind modern networks. These aren't just random facts.
No, they really aren't. They're all connected, like gears, as you said.
Hmm.
Okay, so let's start with orchestration. Centralized management, our first concept from question 1. The Aruba Mobility Conductor. What is this thing?
Right. The mobility conductor is basically the brain for a large Aruba network. Can be a physical box or, virtual.
Mhm.
Its job is to centralize configuration, firmware updates, policies, everything
Yeah.
across lots of individual mobility controllers.
Okay, so controllers manage access points, and the conductor manages the controllers.
Exactly. Think of it like an orchestra conductor, making sure all the different sections, all the controllers are playing the same tune, following the same policies,
So instead of logging into maybe hundreds of controllers one by one,
which would be a nightmare, yeah.
you just tell the conductor what needs to happen and it pushes it out.
That's the core idea. It synchronizes settings across the whole campus or distributed network. It's a huge deal for large, complex environments. Saves immense amounts of time.
I can imagine. But is it just about saving time, or is there a bigger strategic gain, like consistency, fewer mistakes?
It's definitely all of those.
Yeah.
Consistency is massive. Fewer mistakes, absolutely. But the really big thing is agility. When you can push out a new security policy or a firmware update or configure a new service across thousands of devices instantly from one place,
Right.
your network stops being a drag on changes and actually helps you move faster. You can respond to threats quicker, roll out new stuff quicker. It minimizes human error, too.
Okay, that makes sense. Turning the network into an enabler, not a bottleneck.
Precisely.
All right, so from managing the core, let's talk about seeing what's actually connected. That brings us to ClearPass Device Insight. Question 2 highlights this. What's its role?
ClearPass Device Insight is all about visibility, total visibility. It uses AI, profiling, continuous monitoring. Basically, it finds and identifies everything connected to your network.
Everything. Like really everything, including IoT stuff and personal devices.
Yep, laptops, phones, sure. But also all those IoT gadgets, BYOD devices people bring in, even, unmanaged things that might be lurking around that IT doesn't formally control.
Okay, so it's more than just counting MV addresses. It gets deeper, like what kind of device it is.
Oh, much deeper. It figures out the device type, the manufacturer, the operating system, what applications might be running, open ports, and, crucially, it watches how the device behaves on the network over time. It builds a really detailed profile.
Wow, like X-ray vision for the network.
That's a good way to put it. It can tell the difference between, say, a specific brand of security camera and a smart thermostat and see if they start doing something unusual.
So why does that level of detail matter so much for you listening?
Well, it's foundational for security. If you don't know what's on your network, you can't protect it properly. Simple as that. This visibility gives you the intelligence to apply the right access policies automatically. And maybe even more importantly, it lets you spot unknown or risky devices instantly. Things that shouldn't be there or devices acting weirdly.
Illuminating the dark corners, basically, reducing that attack surface.
Exactly. You
Well-
can't secure what you can't see.
Right. Okay, see everything, then protect it. That leads us neatly into zero trust. Big buzzword, that one. Question 3 touches on it. What's the absolute core idea here?
The core idea of zero trust is actually pretty simple, but it's a radical shift. It's verify every single request before granting access. Every user, every device, every time, regardless of where they are.
So no more trusted internal network versus untrusted external internet.
Pretty much, yeah. It throws out that old model of trust but verify if you're inside the building. Zero trust assumes nothing is implicitly trusted. Doesn't matter if you're in the office or at home.
Okay, that sounds tough. How does that work in practice? What does it stop?
It means every attempt to access something needs to be authenticated, authorized, and ideally encrypted continuously. This always verify approach is critical because it stops attackers moving laterally inside your network. That's how most big breaches escalate, right? Someone gets one foothold and then moves everywhere. Zero trust makes that much, much harder. It also minimizes damage from stolen passwords or, insider threats. It's proactive.
So for you listening, in a world where breaches often start inside or attackers move freely once they're in, zero trust isn't just jargon. It's really becoming the standard way to protect important stuff. Much more resilient than just building a bigger wall around the network.
Definitely. The perimeter isn't enough anymore.
Okay, zero trust sounds great, but how do you actually do it? That brings us to the next couple of concepts. Dynamic segmentation and role-based access control, RBAC. Let's take dynamic segmentation first from question 4. How does that work in, say, an Aruba setup?
Right. Dynamic segmentation is a really powerful tool for making zero trust practical. What it does is apply very specific role-based access policies directly to users and devices, right, where they connect to the switch port or the wireless AP.
Isolating traffic right at the source.
Exactly. Each user or device gets put into its own secure little bubble or segment with only the permissions it absolutely needs. This stops them talking to things they shouldn't be talking to, even if they're plugged into the same switch.
Like personalized lanes on the highway?
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Prevents unauthorized lateral movement.
Okay. And then role-based access control, RBAC from question 5, how does that fit in?
RBAC works hand in glove with dynamic segmentation. It simplifies the whole security process massively. Instead of creating rules based on IP addresses or VLANs, which gets incredibly complex, you define policies based on the user's or device's role. Are they HR, finance, a guest, an IoT camera, a printer?
Based on function, not location.
Exactly. Much more intuitive and flexible.
So what's the real magic when you put dynamic segmentation and RBAC together? What's the key takeaway for our listeners?
The game changer is that these role-based policies automatically follow the user or device wherever they connect. Wired, wireless, even VPN. You define HR access once, and the network intelligently enforces those permissions everywhere that person connects. Same for an IoT device.
Wow. Okay. So security stays consistent no matter what.
Right. It hugely simplifies administration and ensures that consistent security posture across your whole environment. It makes zero trust manageable.
So for you, this means you get security that adapts. It understands who or what is connecting and gives only the needed access. Surgical precision, really, instead of blunt, static rules. It makes zero trust a practical reality.
Couldn't have said it better.
All right, let's shift gears slightly. Wireless security and then the IoT challenge. First, WPA3 SAE. Question 6 asks about its main advantage over the WPA2 PSK we all use, or used to use.
The big one, the primary advantage WPA3 SAE brings is something called forward secrecy, or perfect forward secrecy, PFS.
Forward secrecy. Okay, what does that actually protect you from?
It means that even if someone manages to steal or crack your Wi-Fi password later on, maybe months or years later, they cannot use that password to go back and decrypt the data you transmitted in the past. Your old sessions remain secure.
Oh, interesting. So they can't do historical snooping even if they get the key eventually.
Exactly. With WPA2 PSK, if the key was compromised, potentially all past traffic captured using that key could be decrypted. WPA3 SAE prevents that specific type of attack. It makes offline dictionary attacks much harder too.
That's a really significant improvement for confidentiality then.
It really is, especially long term.
Okay. Now, IoT. Billions of these devices connecting. Question 7 looks at securing them using network access control, NAC, like ClearPass. Many IoT devices can't run security agents, right? So how do you secure them?
Yeah, that's the challenge. You can't install antivirus or an agent on most IoT things. So the best approach, and what ClearPass excels at, is profiling the device and then assigning it a specific least privileged role based on what it is.
Profiling again. So ClearPass figures out, this is a smart light bulb, or this is a medical sensor.
Exactly. It identifies the device type, manufacturer, maybe even the OS version, and based on that profile, it automatically assigns a role. And that role dictates exactly what that device is allowed to talk to on the network.
So the light bulb can only talk to its control server and maybe nothing else.
Precisely. Only the bare minimum network access it needs to function, nothing more. Least privilege in action.
And the impact for you, the listener.
Well, with this explosion of IoT, being able to secure these unagentable devices is critical.
Right.
Profiling and role assignment drastically reduce their attack surface without needing someone to manually create policies for every single gadget. It scales. It secures the otherwise unsecurable.
Got it. Essential for managing that growing IoT landscape safely.
Absolutely.
Okay, centralized control, visibility, zero trust, wireless IoT. Now let's extend that secure reach out to branch offices. Question 8 mentions user-based tunneling in Aruba SD branch. What's the concept?
User-based tunneling, or UBT, in an SD branch setup is all about consistency and centralized policy enforcement for remote sites. Basically, it takes a user's traffic right from the access point they're connected to at the branch
Mm-hmm.
and encapsulates it, puts it in a secure tunnel all the way back to a central gateway, usually at a data center or headquarters.
Ah, so traffic doesn't just get dumped onto the local branch network first, it goes straight back to base.
Essentially, yes.
Mm-hmm.
This means all your security policies, your firewalls, your QoS settings, they get applied centrally and uniformly, no matter which branch the user is in.
I see. So you manage security once centrally instead of trying to replicate complex policies at every single branch.
Exactly. It dramatically simplifies managing security and network policies across dozens or hundreds of sites. It ensures everyone gets the same security posture, the same application performance rules.
And it probably makes the branch network itself simpler too.
It can, yes. Less complex configuration needed locally. It's like extending the secure core of your network right out to every user, wherever they are.
So for you listening, if your company has lots of branches, retail stores, or even just many remote workers, this ensures everyone gets that same corporate security and experience. Big win for consistency and efficiency. Reduces risk at the edge.
Definitely a key part of modern distributed networking.
Okay, nearly there. Let's wrap up with being truly proactive. Threat detection and endpoint health. 2 concepts left. Honeypots from question 9 and ClearPass On Guard from question 10. What's a honeypot? Why set one up deliberately?
A honeypot is a really clever security strategy. It's basically a decoy.
Yeah.
You set up a service that looks interesting or valuable to an attacker.
Like bait.
Exactly like bait. But it's isolated from your real network, and it's heavily monitored. It's designed purely to attract and trap malicious activity.
Okay, you lure the bad guys in. What's the payoff? Beyond just seeing them.
The payoff is intelligence. By watching what attackers do in this controlled environment, security teams can learn their techniques, their tools, the vulnerabilities they're exploiting, all without any risk to your actual production systems. You gather forensic data, understand emerging threats, and use that knowledge to strengthen your real defenses as proactive threat intel.
Learning from the enemy in a safe sandbox. Clever.
Very effective, yeah.
And then finally, ClearPass On Guard. Question 10 points to this. How does it act as that essential gatekeeper for device health?
ClearPass On Guard is all about endpoint posture assessment, making sure devices are healthy before they get full access to the network. It uses an agent on the device, or sometimes agentless methods, to do a real-time check.
A health check. What sort of things does it look for?
Things like, is the antivirus running and up to date? Is the operating system patched? Is the firewall enabled? Basic security hygiene checks, essentially.
Right, like a bouncer checking ID and dress code before letting someone into the club.
Good analogy.
Yeah.
And if a device fails those checks, if your laptop's antivirus is off or it's missing critical Windows updates,
Then what happens? No entry.
it doesn't get full network access. It might get quarantined onto a special network with limited access, maybe just to a remediation server so it can get patched. Or it might be blocked entirely until it meets the policy requirements.
So it stops potentially compromised or vulnerable devices from spreading trouble.
Exactly. It's a critical control point for maintaining network integrity and reducing risk from unhealthy endpoints.
So for you, On Guard is that essential check at the door. It makes sure only healthy, compliant devices get in, reducing the risk of malware spreading from, say, an unpatched personal laptop or even a corporate one that's fallen behind. Vital for security and compliance.
Absolutely fundamental.
Networks are getting more complex, more borderless. Threats are always evolving. If never trust, always verify is the security mantra now. What comes next? What innovations do we need for truly invisible, truly impenetrable network protection?
Good question.
And with this constant explosion of new devices, new data types, what challenges do you see coming? How will our whole idea of digital trust need to evolve again?
Lots to think about there.
Definitely something to mull over. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.